Okay, it's Friday night. We're going live again. Let's see if I can get us up here on Facebook where I can see our comments that are going to be coming through. Hope everybody's had a good week. Let's see here. Where are we? There we are. Okay. And now we're in business. Okay, it's Friday. Welcome everybody back to my man cave kitchen. It's been an interesting week here, and I'm going to start off this Friday night with our beer. I have a Unibrew brew here. It's a Canadian company just outside of Montreal in a little town called Chambly. These guys make some really amazing beers. This one is called Don de Dieu, which is French for gift of God. This is one of their what I like to call their big guns. They've got about 4 beers at that brewery that are really high gravity beers. They're all about 9% alcohol, and this one is a, they call it on the website a strong / imperial wit, which is an Abbey style triple wheat. It's a very light colored beer, very low bitterness, low hop, and it's a really light colored beer. So we'll get this guy out here in the glass, have a look at it. I've had this one quite a few times before. I bought a 4-pack of this one today, and let's see if I can show you what that bottle looks like. It's really nice. It's a good beer. The other 3 beers that are their 9% high gravity beers that are in their big guns lineup. There's the La Fin du Monde. There's one called Maudite, and another one called Trois Pistoles. They're all very, very good beers. If you haven't had a chance to try Unibrew, I highly recommend it. This is a very, very smooth beer. It's a very easy drinker, and that in itself makes this one pretty dangerous because it is 9%. It's like drinking 2 of anything else. So, like I said, try these out. This one I said is 9% alcohol by volume. It's 10.5 IBU, and if any of you know about the international bitterness units, that's practically at the bottom of the scale. And the SRM, which indicates the color, is a 5, which is also very low. But to me, this looks darker than a 5 on an SRM. 5 is about as low as it gets, and this beer just to me looks a little darker than that. So I won't put any faith in that rating that they give it on their website. So what are you guys having tonight? If anybody's having a beer with me, let me know what it is. Let's see who we got with us tonight. Darren Wilson's with us tonight. Darren wants to know who I'm talking to. I don't know who I'm talking to. Looks like we've got a few people following along. Yeah, Roger, I saw that Megadeth. I saw that today. That's the first time I had seen that one. There's a beer shop near me called Hops and Grapes that sells beer and wine, and they had the Megadeth. I might grab that one next time and give it a try. That might be the only Unibrew that I haven't tried. I wasn't aware of it. So they also had those Iron Maiden beers. I don't remember who makes those. I don't know if they're any good or not, but the cans sure do look cool. So I'm probably going to grab some of those just to have the cans on hand and give that a shot. So yeah. Okay. First thing tonight, I just posted earlier on the Man Cave Meals page a little heads up about the Man Cave, or I'm sorry, about the Atlanta Grill Company wing dust. This is something they've been working on for a while, and when their email blast went out today, the first thing they had at the top of it was their wing dust. They're taking pre-orders on this. They're selling pre-orders on the 12-pack which is 12 10-ounce packages of wing dust. And the flavors that they have listed for these wing dust packages, there's buffalo, Cajun, garlic parmesan, green chili queso, honey barbecue, Jamaican jerk, lemon pepper, Nashville hot, ranch, salt and vinegar, sour cream and onion, and sweet teriyaki. There's 12 10-ounce packages in that, and I think the kit price is listed at $99. I don't know if that's normal, if that's an initial offering, or if that's the normal price, and I don't know what the individual pouch prices are. They don't have those listed yet, but they are taking pre-orders on those, and they're shipping on October, I think it said October 15th, if I remember correctly. So I'll get some of those as soon as they're available, and we'll have a look at them and what these things are. I've never used the wing dust before, and I've never done this process, but what you do basically is you cook your wings without any seasoning on them, and when they're done, you toss them in this stuff to give them the flavor profile that comes with the whichever flavor you choose. So that's how those work, and check them out if you're interested. Those are coming around. This week in the man cave, I didn't get a whole lot of cooking done. I came up one project short, but I did get my main objective done. I cooked a pot of chili on the Kamado Joe, and I used the Dutch oven. That video's up. That video's up on the Atlanta Grill Company Facebook page, on the Atlanta Grill Company YouTube channel, and I've also shared it here on the Man Cave Meals page as well. This technique I've been doing for chili for a while, and I really like it. This over-the-top chili that people are doing, that's become a real popular thing, and what I'm doing here is not that different than the over-the-top chili technique. I just don't use a ball of ground beef. I wanted to use ground chuck to do this chili I did this week, but I bought the chuck and I prepped it. I got everything set up ready to go. I got my grinder out. I got it put together, and I'm missing the knife blade for my grinder. I don't know where it went. It's not in the bag with all the parts and accessories that I keep together with that grinder. I've just lost it. So I had to order another grinder blade, which won't be here till this coming week. I wanted to do a chili ground beef. I like ground beef in my chili, and my wife prefers it that way. So I wanted to use the coarse grind. I've got a die for my grinder that's got like a 10 or 10.5 millimeter holes in it that are rather large, which give you a really nice coarse grind for chili. And that's what I wanted to do. I couldn't do it because I couldn't get my grinder. I said, well, okay, I'll go to the grocery store. I'll buy another chuck roast, and I'll let them grind it for me at the grocery store. So I went, grabbed a chuck roast, and yelled at the guy in the behind the meat counter. Says, hey, can you grind this for me? He says, sure. And I said, I want the chili grind. I want it done with a coarse die. Okay, the guy says, well, we've only got one die. And I said, is it the same? I guess it's the same size die you grind your hamburger with. And he said, yeah. So I couldn't get that done. So I put that chuck back, just came on back home. I took the chili. I had chunked my chili into pieces that were just big enough to fit through the grinder. So I came back and I just diced those up into some smaller pieces and went with that, which is what I've done in the past with brisket, and I've actually done it with pork butt. I've done it with chuck, but I wanted to grind it and didn't get to. But anyway, you take your meat, whatever meat you're going to use. It can be ground beef. It can be diced beef like I used here. And I take a sheet pan, a quarter sheet pan, and spread my beef out on that pan. I put my diced onions on the pan with it, and I put my minced garlic there. Before I put it out on the pan, I have all that in a mixing bowl, and I pour on a little bit of melted butter, or I used ghee, and tossed it in that to get all that stuff coated with that. You could use beef tallow, or you could use olive oil if you really wanted to. But getting it coated in that stuff gives that smoke some additional stuff to adhere to. So I spread it out on that quarter sheet, put it in the Kamado Joe, and let it bathe in the smoke for about an hour to get some smoke on that. The only real difference here between what I do and what the over the top chili is I don't have just a ball of ground beef. That ball of ground beef, I guess it only gets smoke on the outside, and I guess it's staying out there a lot longer because it's they render the fat from the beef into the chili pot that's underneath, I guess. But the fat that renders from my chuck while I'm doing it this way collects in that pan, and I put it in the Dutch oven also. So I'm not really losing any of that. But once it's been in there in the smoke for about an hour, I toss it in the Dutch oven. Then I add my second phase ingredients, which in this particular recipe I used beef stock and Guinness beer because I think that's a fantastic combination. It makes an awesome flavor. And I put chili powder in with that. I put in a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, and I put in a little bit of fish sauce because those are ingredients. Fish sauce for me, I know a lot of people don't like the idea of that, but it brings an umami flavor you don't get any other way, and you have to use it in moderation. I only used a teaspoon or so for 4 to 4.5 quarts of chili, so it's not really a whole lot. And I put that in the Dutch oven, and I set the lid on the Dutch oven at this point and just left it cracked. I didn't seal it up, and I let it go for another hour where it could get a little bit more smoke. And then after that second hour, I put the Dutch oven lid on the pot and just let it go. And at that point, you don't have to stay on the grill. You're not gaining anything by staying on the grill, but I figure since the grill's running already, we just leave it there. I bumped my temperature up from 225 to somewhere up between 250, 275 so I can get a good simmer going on that, and left it in there for another 6 hours. And after the 6 hours, you come back, I add diced tomatoes, I add tomato paste, I add another round of my chili powder. If I didn't mention chili powder in that first phase, there's chili powder there also. And I added a little extra ground cumin to that, and mix all that in and let it go for a little bit longer. And after that's had a chance to settle in, you start checking for salt to see if you need any additional salt. I ended up adding about a teaspoon of salt to that. The beef stock brings a good bit of salt if you're not using low sodium beef stock, which I didn't. I used a standard beef stock. And after you add those in, you just need to let them simmer for another hour, another 30 minutes to an hour, and then it's ready to serve. It makes an amazing chili. It's not overpowering. Some of the over the top chili cooks that I've seen posted, I'm a little concerned about how much smoke goes on them. Like I said, I don't like things overly smoky. I like a light smoke, and I like smoke to be just a hint rather than overpowering, and this technique gives me that. It does a perfect job. So Roger says, anytime I do the over-the-top chili, the meat is incredibly smoky and kind of repeats on me, unfortunately. Too bad, because I like the idea of it. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. You can put too much smoke on it, for sure. And you got to be careful with that. Too much smoke ruins things, and nobody ever complains about not enough smoke when you're cooking. I've never had anybody say this doesn't have enough smoke on it, but I've had people leave the food on their plate because it was too smoky. So yeah, that's something you have to pay attention to. And yes, I forgot to tell you that I didn't use sugar. I put in a tablespoon of honey there with that last addition of stuff, and that really brings things together, and it knocks back the acidity just a little bit. So it's a good question. I used honey because it was convenient. One of the things I like to do if I have any laying around is I'll throw about two Hershey Kisses in there, or a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of milk chocolate, or even a little bit of dark chocolate. Get the same sort of effect. I like to use this stuff called Lyle's Golden Syrup also. I rarely just use plain table sugar anymore unless that's all I've got. So, yeah, that was a fun cook. It makes probably for a typical serving where you'd serve 8 to 10 ounces of that, you're probably going to get at least 8 servings out of that recipe. It's a healthy recipe. I'm going to make well, let's not say healthy in terms of health. Let's say healthy in terms of a man cave size serving. So, yeah. I'm going to make this recipe again here in the next couple of weeks, but I'm probably going to quadruple the recipe and I'm going to cook most of it in a stock pot on my stove top and put a bunch of it away in the freezer where I'll have chili all winter long when I want it. So that's fun to do. So that's all I have about my chili cook. It was fun. While that chili was cooking, I was looking for something else to do, so I made my blueberry cream cheese pound cake and cooked it in the cast iron bundt pan. I posted some pictures of that somewhere, but it's the same recipe that's on the Atlanta Grill Company YouTube channel. Just a little different cooking technique, but if you like pound cake and like blueberries, you're definitely gonna have to give that one a try also. All right, enough about that. Carla likes to double and triple recipes and freeze the extras. I'm with you there. And this chili, for instance, is a perfect example of something that I actually like better after it's been refrigerated overnight or been in the freezer. I don't understand the science behind that, but that chili is a heck of a lot better the next day or the next time you open it up. I don't know why, but it's better. My tomato sauces work out the same way. All right. I want to talk about temperatures. I want to talk about cooking temperatures a little bit because that is going to segue into our gadget discussion tonight. Uh, so, cooking temperatures are something I love to get into arguments about, and I'm sure you've probably seen me do it before. Uh, my favorite argument is grate temperature versus dome temperature. Um, the reason I like to get in on those debates and arguments is because I believe there's a right way and a wrong way to measure the temperature inside a Kamado grill, particularly. Uh, I see a lot, every time somebody gets a new temperature controller or gets a new digital thermometer or probe that they're using inside their Kamado, the first question that comes up is, why is my digital thermometer reading 270 degrees and my dome thermometer reading 320 or vice versa? Why is there a big discrepancy there? And the reason there's a big discrepancy there is easy because and it's because of the location of that digital probe when you put it on your grill grate. There are a lot of things going on at grate level that can cause the temperature to read differently than the dome thermometer. If you're cooking indirect on a Kamado grill, you've got your heat deflector in there and you've got the heat coming up around the outside edge of the grill. If your temperature probe is too close to the outside edge of the grill where that heat's coming up, it's going to read a good bit hotter than your dome thermometer. And it's going to stay that way for most of the cook because that temperature's changing. There's more convection going on in the top of the grill up by the dome thermometer, and it's a little cooler up there actually because of that. So give that a shot or think about that. It's it's just warmer out there. So by the same token, let's say you've got a Boston butt on the grill. You've got an 8-pound butt that's sitting in the middle of the grill. if your dome thermometer is an inch away from that cold piece of meat, it's going to read cooler than your dome thermometer, and it's going to read cooler than your dome thermometer for a long time because it takes that meat a while to warm up. And even though your thermometer is not touching the meat, the air closer to that colder piece of meat is cooler than the air out closer to the edge of the grill. So the question comes up, which temperature's right? Everybody wants to think about grate temperature as being more accurate because that's where your food is. But accuracy is not really the goal here. Consistency and temperature reading is your goal. You want to do this where you're going to get a consistent reading every time. The dome thermometer gives you a consistent reading because it's going to be relatively the same distance from the heat deflector and the same distance from your food all the time. That's not going to change a whole lot. If you've got some really huge piece of meat on your grill, like if you've got a 25-pound turkey on there, all bets are off because your dome thermometer might be too close to the turkey, or it might actually be jabbed in the side of it. You never know. I've seen that happen before too. But look for consistency when you're doing your temperature readings. I like to clip my electronic probe from my temperature controller to the stem of the dome thermometer. There's a couple of ways to do that, but I think the way that's working best for me right now is I went to Harbor Freight and bought this package of clips that had like 7 or 8 alligator clips in it. And fortunately, that alligator clip would slide perfectly onto the end of the ambient probe for my fireboard, where I can just clip it up there. That works real well. The other thing I had been doing was using a grate clip that had 3 holes in it. But I've also discovered that finding a grate clip with 3 holes that are the right size for this to happen is difficult. The ones that come with the iCommand work perfectly, but I've bought 3 different kinds of these on Amazon to try to find one on Amazon that works perfectly, and I haven't found one yet. They just don't work out. So I think the alligator clip solution works better. And if you want to try that, that'll help get your ambient probe for your electronic thermometer up there where the dome is. The dome thermometer is reading, and you're going to get a more consistent reading throughout your cook, and it works really well. Another issue that I see when you are taking temperature readings from the grill, one of the common ones I see that bothers me is when people are doing direct grilling. Like if you want to cook a steak, for instance, and you want to sear it over some super hot coals, the first thing you need to do when you start thinking about that process is forget completely about what your dome thermometer says. And you don't want to use any electronic probes when you're direct grilling because they can't withstand that kind of heat. It'll damage them. But all you need when you're going to sear a steak over direct flame is you need a good hot bed of coals. And you can tell if you've got a good hot bed of coals just by looking at it. It's going to be glowing red hot. And you won't be able to keep your hand 2 or 3 inches above it for more than just a couple seconds. That's perfect. We don't need to know what the dome temperature is. The dome thermometer is too far away from that heat to tell you anything about how hot it is directly over that flame. So don't worry about somebody says you want to get your dome thermometer up to 700 degrees. No, you don't. You don't need to even consider that. You just need a hot bed of coals. And like I said, you can see it. You can look at it and see that it's hot enough to cook with. Whatever the dome says doesn't matter because it's ultimately going to be a foot away. And a foot's a long way when we're talking about radiant heat. So keep that in mind. Direct grilling also, you have to pay attention to how far away your meat is from that direct coal. I do direct grilling where I've got the meat down close to the coals, and I also do some where I've got meat further away. Chicken, for instance, I like to cook further away from the coal because chicken takes longer to cook, and I don't want to scorch the outside of it while the inside's still cooking. So I'll cook on the upper rack above direct heat. I do the same thing with fish shellfish or any other protein that's more delicate than something like a steak. Steaks and hamburgers, if I'm going to cook over direct flame, I cook them down low. So, and yeah, cast iron grates and the soapstone gnat are a different story, and that's one of the things we're going to talk about here in a minute specifically, because that's the way I like to cook. I like to cook on a flat surface rather than direct flame grilling. So that brings me to our gadget segment. Today, I want to talk about some gadgets. My gadget of the day is my infrared thermometer. I've got several of these things laying around here. This one is the ThermoWorks IR gun. This one is the ThermoPro. It's a cheaper version of the same thing. And I have this other one that came with my Alpha oven, my wood-fired oven. These things are great. It's you point it at the surface that you want to take the temperature of, squeeze the trigger, a little laser comes on, and then it gives you a digital display of your temperature right there on the screen. These things are awesome when you're cooking on a cast iron griddle or cooking on the soapstone, because you can use this to know exactly when your cooking surface is at the optimum temperature for whatever you want to cook. I like to cook my steaks on soapstone. I know you guys know that, because every time I do it, I post a picture that shows a picture of this beautifully seared steak, and I put the comment on there just in case you forgot why you need a soapstone, because that always stirs up the debate as well of why you need a soapstone instead of a cast iron griddle. I'm going to leave that one alone for now because that's common. So I like to sear my steaks with the soapstone at a temperature of between 500 and 550 degrees. Doesn't need to be any hotter than that. I like to lay down a little bit of ghee on that soapstone and let that ghee get just to where it's getting ready to smoke before I drop that steak on there, and I get a beautiful sear on the outside of that steak, a beautifully caramelized sear. Nothing's charred. It's just all a beautiful Maillard reaction. And the reason I like to be at 500 to 550 degrees is because that gives that a quicker sear, and that's up right at the smoke point of the ghee. If I was using another fat other than ghee, I would want to cook it down closer to the smoke point of that fat. I don't want to smoke the oil, because that's going to be acrid no matter what oil you use. But this guy lets me see the temperature of that stone and let me know when I'm there. It lets me know when the temperature is optimal. I use this thing when I'm cooking on the stovetop also. If I'm searing, well, let's call it saute instead of searing. If I've got a saute pan out, and let's say I've got a chicken breast on there, I want to get my pan nice and hot. And typically I don't use a thermometer till I'm ready to put my meat on. To see if a pan's getting hot, I splash a little water in it, and then when the water sizzles, I know that it's hot enough for me to put my oil in. When I put whatever searing fat that I'm going to use in there, whether it's ghee, olive oil, beef tallow, or what, you just have to watch it at that point, and you'll see when it's getting ready to start to smoke. You'll see little whiffs of smoke coming. At that point, you back your heat back down and put your fat on, because you know your temperature basically, because you're at the smoke point of the fat. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can use this guy to see what the temperature of that surface is. To get a Maillard reaction, you want to be up at 330 degrees at a minimum. Lower than that, you're not going to get any browning, and you're going to end up steaming whatever you're cooking rather than browning it. So this is very useful for any cooking surface. Your flat top griddles that are propane fired, you'd want one of these on hand to watch for that. like I said, cooking on the stovetop. Another interesting thing about this is you can point this into a pot of boiling water, and it's going to give you the temperature of that water, or the water at the surface anyway, without having to stick any kind of thermometer in the liquid. It'll tell you the temperature of the liquid. You can do the same sort of thing. I don't know how well this works as a candy thermometer. I'm wanting to think it would work pretty well. So somebody who cooks candy, who does sugars a lot more than I do, maybe you can leave me a comment here and let me know how this works as a candy thermometer. The problem with this guy that I once again learned the hard way is if the surface that you're measuring the temperature on with this guy is reflective, forget it. It's not going to give you a good reading. I have a pan that I like to cook in that's got a really shiny mirrored sort of finish on it. And I was heating that pan up, and I said, well, instead of throwing the water in there, I'll just use my IR thermometer. And the IR thermometer, I kept putting heat to the pan. It was getting hot. I could feel it, but the temperature reading was like 210. And I said, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and drop the oil in there. And I put some olive oil in that pan, and the smoke alarms in the house were going in about 15 seconds. That oil smoked, caught on fire, and made a mess because this guy can't read off a reflective surface very well. I don't know why that is, so maybe somebody who knows the answer to that can leave me a comment here as well, why this doesn't work on a reflective surface. But this has become an invaluable tool for me. I use it for a lot of things cooking related. Like I said, for flat surface cooking, whether it be in a pan on the stove top or on my grill. This one lives in my toolbox that I keep my fireboard in. I've got one of those Apache all-weather boxes from Harbor Freight that I keep my fireboard temperature control system in. This IR gun lives in it, and my thermopen lives in it, where I've always got all of my temperature tools are all together at the grill at the same time when I need them. So that is about all I've got on the gadget front tonight. I know last week I said we're going to try to have a gadget segment every week, and once I got to thinking about that, it's going to be difficult. I'm not sure what gadgets I've got that would be easy to show here and quick. If there's some gadgets that you'd like to see discussed or demonstrated or talked about here on a live stream, let me know what those are. And if I don't have it, maybe I can get it if it's something I'm interested in getting. And we'll talk about those. Chad's from Ontario. Chad's Canadian. Chad, we're drinking Canadian beer tonight in your honor. So if you don't have one of these, get it out. This one's for all my Canadian friends. Alrighty. I'm not able to see all of the comments as they come in. Sometimes they come in faster. I'll go back through these after the video and answer any questions that I've missed. The differences between the I command and the fireboard. There's many differences there. Both of those tools work very well. I think the bells and whistles that are available with the fireboard are far superior. Everybody likes to talk about temperature controllers. I've got a lot of temperature controllers. It took me a long time to buy into using a temperature controller. Anybody that's known me a while knows that I used to not care for them. I used to be one of these guys that says, oh, you don't need a temperature controller. Your grill's perfectly capable of doing the job without it. And while that's still true, I have changed my mind about using a temperature controller. When the iCommand was in beta testing and I was involved in doing some product testing with that device, that testing taught me that I want to be using a temperature controller. It's a time saver for me. There's a lot of things about it, and maybe I'll talk about temperature controllers in one of our live streams, and that's a whole subject that's worthy of a lot of discussion. Kevin dropped his iCommand and the vent broke. It's a good excuse to get a fireboard, he says. The iCommand, which I don't know which vent you're talking about. Are you talking about the flap door, the flapper door on it? Did that break? The iCommand doesn't have anything that's fixable if something goes wrong. That's one thing that's interesting about it, but I don't think any of the others really do either. If something fails on one of those. Okay, Lawrence. It's because of the emissivity rating of highly polished metals. They are good at reflecting IR, ambient energy, but not at emitting. Well, yeah, that makes sense. So, I don't know what the best tool is for measuring. Lawrence, what would I use if I wanted to measure the temperature of a reflective surface? What's the right tool to do with that? Do you need some sort of contact thermometer to do that? I don't know. I guess the right answer is I shouldn't use that pan. Unfortunately, I like that pan, and I'll continue to use it. And the good thing about cooking is once you've done enough of it, you learn to know how hot your pan is by how it's behaving. Like I said, when you splash a little water in there, when that water sizzles around and jumps off, you know your pan's at least 212. So at that point, it's hot enough to put some oil in it. And when you put the oil in it, you can watch what the oil's doing. You'll see some convection currents and some lines forming in that oil as it heats up. And as it gets close to its smoking point, you'll see some little whiffs of smoke starting to pop off of it. And that's when you either pick the pan up or you turn your heat down and you're ready to cook. So you don't really need a thermometer if you have the visual skills of knowing what to look for. So, the front face plastic broke off of the iCommand. Yeah, the iCommand in its current form, the only thing I don't like about it is that you have to take it off the grill to get the ash pan out. The grill, that was a last minute addition. That feature was added to the iCommand before. We didn't have that on the beta test version. That was added in the production version, and we didn't get a chance to test with that. And that feature, the reason you have to take it off, it's got those little flaps on there that keep you from sliding it over to the side with the door, because if you slide it over to the side while the fan is running, that flapper door will catch on the grill and you'll tear it off. So they put that on there as a safety to keep that from happening. But the drawback on that is it requires you to take the thing off every time you want to dump the ash out, which makes it a little interesting. So, alrighty. Well, I'm not going to ramble. I don't want to hold you guys up. I appreciate you joining me. This is the third one of these we've done on a Friday night, and I'll try to come up with some additional things we can talk about. We'll come back and do it next Friday night with a different beer, a different set of topics. So, thanks for joining me. Until next time, this is John Setzler in the Man Cave.